Hi, everybody. George the Iceman Mena with Dave Devlin and JJ the Magician. Welcome to the American Magic Guild's broadcast. I like that word. You invented it.
I did. Kudos to me. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Anyway, well, we decided to have a bit of an informal talk with you tonight, and the question most commonly asked is, "How did you get started?" So, who wants to take that one?
I'll start.
Yeah,
I started when I was 4 years old. My grandparents gave me a little kitty magic set for my fourth birthday. I know this because my parents had a little diary for all of us when we were kids, and it says that Grandma and Grandpa gave me a magic set for my birthday. So that means I've been doing magic for 40 years. I started with that little set, and I'd get more sets and more sets, and eventually I could read. Of course, growing up, and I started with books. I'd go to the library and I would find every single book I could possibly find on magic. Some were great, some were not so great, and then I discovered the magic shop. The magic shop. My first magic shop was the Queen of Hearts in Plano, Texas. It's no longer there, sadly. They had summer classes. They had books. They didn't have videos. Videos really weren't a thing yet. So anyway, that's how I got started, and I've never quit.
Junior.
Well, when I was about 8, 9 years old, I was into cards a lot. Like I used to play blackjack and rummy, and I'm in the third grade playing blackjack. That's how bad it was. And I remember I'm playing cards with my uncle, and he shows me a trick. And till this day, I have no idea how he did it. Blew me away. And he showed me a few other things, actually taught me how to do it. So I just kept doing those and coming up with my own version of sleights. Then I found out Marlo did it. And one day I went to go get a key made at a key shop. Back then we had key shops, not Walmart everywhere. And the guy had a deck of cards there. And I said, "Hey, do you mind if I show you a trick?" He's like, "Sure." I showed him a trick, little 4-ace robber trick. Everybody knows that one. And then he said, "Oh, that was cute. That was cute. Let me show you a trick." So he shows me a trick, blows me away, and he says, "Hey, I've got a magic shop in the back of the key shop if you want to come look." And immediately, red flags, alarms. This guy's a weirdo. And I'm like, "Sure, let's check it out." So I go back there, and he literally had a key shop or a magic shop back there.
Wait, and this isn't in Salt Lake City, Utah.
This is in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
This is in New Jersey.
Kids,
and,
don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't
no, especially in Jersey. Oh no! Right. So I went back there, and I was just literally my jaw dropped. Like I remember everything used to shock me, from Svengali deck to coloring book. I would call the guy and leave voicemails. "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how this is done. This is genius, blah, 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 blah." And he would take me to other shops. There's Make a Magic, which no longer exists in Jersey, and that was a huge magic shop. I think it was the biggest one in Jersey. Then he would tell me about Tannins in New York. I'd go to Tannins a lot, and it was just amazing. I loved it. Loved performing. Hated performing for children, believe it or not. It was always adults. And about 6, 7 years ago, I just got bit with the bug. I was just showing kids magic, and to see their little eyes light up and the wow and the jaws dropping, and that just took over. And I've been doing children's magic and family entertainment since. So I absolutely love it.
It takes a lot of courage to do children's magic. Now, in my case, I was visiting my grandfather, and my grandfather is an old Spaniard and had his little office set up there that no one really went into. And I went in and found all kinds of strange little things, like a ventriloquist dummy and a couple of change bags. And I said, "Hey, Grandpa, what's this?" And he said, "Well, it's a magician's. They are a magician's tools." And I said, "Do you know any magicians?" And he says, "Well, when I was about 13 years old, I was a magician. I ran away with a circus." And he was taught by the older magician, and it was in exchange for him to play the timbales while the burlesque show came on the circus stage. So anyway, he was really cool because I asked, "Well, how do you do this?" And he just showed me. And then one of the things I mastered early on was the 3-card Monte. And I would say that the real inspiration for me to get a wider repertoire and learn other things was a science teacher at Tacoma Park Junior High School in Maryland, because in those days we were allowed to sell candy during the breaks between classes and at lunchtime. And I became really good at taking the other kids' candy with my 3-card Monty.
He also,
Now, let me say this: I always gave them the candy back, but it was the thrill of taking their candy and then seeing their faces. No, you can have it back. But the teacher did not believe me, and he said, "No, it's like this: either you learn some real tricks other than what you're doing right now, or you're going to be performing for the Montgomery County Police Department." So that was a great incentive for me to go out and learn other things. And then I started visiting magic shops in Baltimore, Maryland, and Silver Spring, Maryland. There was a little one. And I can't remember the name right now, but had an uncle who was very supportive, and he didn't know magic. He didn't want to learn magic, but he sure enjoyed going to the magic shops. So that's how I started. I guess the one thing we have in common, really none of us had a mentor per se early on.
Not early on, no.
And today it's a whole lot easier, because back then, if you didn't have a mentor, there were very few books, and no one would even tell you where those books were.
right. I remember, everything was tight-lipped. Like nobody wanted to show you a trick. You had to earn your way. You had to attend the magic clubs and the meetings and stay after hours, and hopefully somebody, hey, check this out, and we teach you how to do it. So, and VHS tapes back then were super expensive.
Yeah, like $85 for a
Yeah.
VHS tape that wasn't even professionally done. It was, somebody's living room in so
And when I started, there was no VHS. I mean, I'm about 10 years older than you guys. It was
papyrus
books,
scrolls.
papyrus scrolls, and the Pharaoh's magician when he was on tour. And that's really how do you start? Once you get started, I know that coins was your first, and still is your first love.
Pretty much. I dabble in just about every single genre of magic, branch of magic, except Grand Illusion. I studied Grand Illusion. I love Grand Illusion. I cannot perform it to save my life. So I'll do like parlor, but that's about as big of a prop as I'll get.
So coins are your
Coins are my favorite thing to watch, but cards. I love packet tricks. Packet tricks are just awesome. I love them, and mentalism. I'm heavily into mentalism.
Yeah, and mentalism is what I do mostly with John Jorge and Mena. We perform mostly mentalism, but even in mentalism, you want to include cards and do some mentalism that involves cards. Or, like you said, you can't just say, all I do is coins or card magic, because if you're going to be a magician, you really should know everything and study it. It's an ongoing process. You're always learning. If you stop learning, well, technology is going to pass you by. Improvements on presentations, on effects. So just because you're a mentalist doesn't mean that you don't do other things. And I agree with you. Some of the early books were mostly about illusions. Number one, I didn't have the money.
That's for sure.
They're expensive. And number two, even if I had the money and I bought an illusion, I don't think anybody would trust me enough to do anything where they...
Vanishing helicopter.
How about you, Junior?
Well, for me, I started with close-up magic, card magic. I absolutely loved. I mean, I picked up anything and everything I possibly could. I enjoyed, doing impromptu things or things that seemed to be impromptu. I'd love having that arsenal, that special thing in my back pocket. When I'm performing for children and families, there's times where I have my 45-minute set, and all of a sudden I look at my watch and I just did the whole thing in 30 minutes. Now, so I pull out the close-up stuff, but I make it work for the audience. Something I recommend every magician should know, because it'll fool people. People will remember you. It's card warp. So definitely look that up, pick it up, card warp. I love coin magic as well. I go for the more visual things where it just seemed to be a regular coin, vanishes, appears all of a sudden. It's a jumbo coin. Just things that really pop and stick in people's heads. But mostly nowadays, it's, I love videos for the close-up stuff, But when it comes to children's magic, I enjoy reading the books. So I can actually visualize the kids' oohs and ahs and what works and the double takes and things like that. So I would rather read children's books, performing books, and then watch close up stuff or parlor stuff.
And I would recommend, if you want to get into mentalism, Osterman's DVD set.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's. I'll tell you what. If you have that and you study it, and it's going to take you quite a bit to get through the whole thing.
He has a couple.
And he has a couple, but the DVD collection is fantastic, and it'll help you understand the why behind each one of those effects. And in my case, what I found was, boy, I can do it differently. I can do it this way, which I think is what all of us do when we read an effect, because we really, as performers, want to be different. We want to stand out.
Right now, at first, I did copy literally word for word in my own spare time, in my own practice, and then figured out a way to change it. So if you're copying at first for yourself, I think it's okay. But once you bring it out to the real world, you need to change it up. You need to switch it.
Again, the important thing is that if you decided to go into magic, I would just suggest this: become your own best critic. Practice, 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 and not just the effects. Practice your act. Make it go from point A to point B to point C, and so forth and so on. Give it some continuity. And more importantly, be yourself. Develop the personality, the persona that's going to be performing. People don't go to a show to watch tricks. They go to a show to watch a performer. And they expect to suspend reality while you're doing your effects, and then go home either really thrilled by the fact that they were in this suspended reality, or really upset because they couldn't figure it out. They couldn't figure out who you were doing it. So.
Right. It's live theater, guys. I mean, nowadays with technology, everybody's on their phone or on their computer or watching the TV. But to enjoy a live performance and you giving a great performance, that's unique. That's what will stick with them. Also, besides practice, 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 perform it. Go out there, do it. Change up your verbiage that you use. Try a different move on the same trick. Get a mirror, practice in front of a mirror. Get a camera, record yourself. Listen to the ums and the that you're saying and try to clear that out of the way. Polish your act. Make it unique, make it yours, and own it. You should be able to do your whole routine blindfolded and know exactly where your props are and what you're going to do next.
And take the feedback from the audience, whatever they're feeding you, that energy. Use it to your advantage. Integrate it into what you're doing. That's probably the best counsel I think that we can give.
Improv, use it.
Definitely.
Any last closing thoughts, Dave?
Well, when we talk about practicing, make sure you're doing the move perfectly, or you at least understand the move perfectly before you practice it, because if you practice it wrong, then all the practice in the world is not going to help.
Yeah, technique is very important. If you're holding the cards the wrong way, the effect's not going to work. If you don't know how to do a particular mechanical move, for lack of a better term, ask somebody. One of the reasons we have the American Magic Guild, and by the way, we invite all magicians who would like to join us in sharing some of their experiences and some of their insights. You're welcome. Send us a message, and we'd love to hear from you. But David is absolutely right. It's not just the performance, it's the mechanics behind the effect. And when you practice, master the effect correctly, and then rehearse your performance until it is flawless, that you yourself have a smile on your face when you do something that evokes a smile. So, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that this is useful to you, and we always enjoy talking about magic. So, on behalf of Dave, JJ, the Iceman saying, thanks, and it'll be until next time.